Lesson 4, this is just a very quick lesson, and it's on information and rational decision makers. We assume in economics that all decision makers are rational, but of course the decision maker has to have the right information to be able to make that decision. Now, information, it may seem like a really boring subject, and it is a pretty boring subject. However, to me, it's absolutely central to what we do in economics, and I'm just going to give you some examples. For instance, I've already mentioned this, but do the people in the Congo know that below the ground they're probably one of the wealthiest nations in the world today? Now, imagine if all the Congolese people had that information and they knew that potentially that if they could create political stability, good institutional factors, good infrastructure, that their economy could take off big time. So instead of being one of the poorest countries in the world, they could very quickly develop and become one of the richer nations. And then also, do they also know that those companies that are moving in there are exploiting their resources and paying them a very poor price for what they do? Okay, so that's just one aspect of information. For me, as an environmentalist, the biggest source of disinformation was that over climate change. It was rubbish for years and years, primarily being sponsored by the oil companies, now called the Global Climate Coalition. Now, what they said was, well, we can't be sure that the climate change is taking place, and it seems a bit far-fetched, so therefore don't believe that climate change is taking place. Yeah, we're not sure about the science. We can't be definite that it's taking place. Now, as a climate change, as someone who's interested in climate change, no, we can't be sure about the science. We don't know how serious it's going to be, but it's definitely taking place. Most people would accept that right now. So information's critical in terms of running an economy, and information also in terms of political decision makers making the right decisions. Now, they are very short-termist. They don't think of the consequences in the long term about what could happen in the economy due to the fact of climate change, for example, or to the fact that resources are going up in price. So what are we going to do about that? They're very much focused on the short term. Now, that's partially because they may not have all the information coming in there. There are very few members of the UK Parliament who are scientists. I think it's something like 17 out of 640 MPs. So they're not used to dealing with sort of scientific information. Right? They tend to be good talkers rather than dealing with scientific information and what that means and the impact upon the economy. Okay, so students should recognise that imperfect information makes it difficult for economic agents to make rational decisions and is a potential source of market failure. Okay, climate change. If you believe in Al Gore, then you're going to run a very different economy to those if you believe in George Bush. Okay, so, but is Al Gore working on the right information, or are the climate change deniers working on the right information? The Stern report that was run by an economist called the Stern Review, I think it was in 2007, said that this is going to be the biggest market failure of all time, and by the year 2050, unless we do something about it, GDP is going to take a 20% hit. All right, that's one piece. The one that the books always cite is with dentists, car mechanics, house builders, is that the dentist has the full information and you are the buyer of that service, but you don't really know quite what they're talking about. So they could easily take out a few teeth to earn a little bit more money for themselves. So there is asymmetric information there. This is when either the buyer or seller has more information than the other party. Now, clearly the dentist has more information than the patient. Exactly the same with a car mechanic. Are they being honest in terms of the bill that they give you? The second-hand car market. The seller will probably know what their car is like. The buyer will not know what their car is like. HS2, that massive railway line that we're going to have from London to Manchester, is it? Or Birmingham. Who knows what the benefits are? It depends how we assess the benefits. So there may be a lack of information in terms of that particular on that particular enterprise. So are we in fact making the right decisions in terms of what's going on? Now, so it's an incredibly important decision. And another part of this equation really is when the top decision makers, and I don't think enough research has been done on this. But when the top researchers make decisions, are they making decisions in the best interest of their party or in the best interest of the country or the global economy? And certainly I think, certainly with the global economy, we're not making the right decisions in there, because even though the information is, say, out there on climate change, on global warming, psychologically people at large don't really want to acknowledge it's happening. Because if you acknowledge it's happening, it becomes pretty scary, and they can only look at the short term. People can only look at the short term. So is there something wrong with our processing of information? And then that brings us on to the subject of sustainable development. So this is, in a sense, just one part of economics, but you must have the right information to make good decisions, and asymmetric information will occur in society because some people hold more information than other people.